Hello and welcome to Latam This Week with the Brazilian Report. My name is Gustavo Ribeiro. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Brazilian Report, and I'm joined by Ignacio Portes from Buenos Aires, our Latin America correspondent. Hello, Ignacio.
Hey, Gustavo. Good to be with you again.
My pleasure. Ignacio, when I used only to cover Brazil, I thought that we had like the weirdest, most confusing political system I could imagine. And then we had the Brazilian Report started covering Latin America. And I mean, Peru, they really make a case for themselves as one of the most unstable countries in the region. In late 2020, they had 3 presidents in a 1-week span. Then last year, when Pedro Castillo was elected president in a very contested election, some of the electoral authorities, they didn't want to certify his win. It was unclear that even winning, would he be able to govern? And he did not exactly prove people that were skeptical of him wrong, right? Because it's been just a few months that he has been in office, and he's already making a third change to his cabinet. He's going to have his 4th cabinet right now, right? What's going on there?
Well, as you say, it's true that the way in which the political system in Peru is built, presidents can be very weak in as soon as they lose some political support in Congress. They really need to have a solid majority to make sure that not only that they won't be impeached, but also that their ministers will even be able to do their job and to be stable in their jobs, because every cabinet chief has to be approved by Congress after a few weeks after the president names them. So what we're seeing right now is President Castillo trying to form a stable cabinet and failing to do so for the 3rd consecutive time. Now, even though sometimes they were approved by Congress, the cabinet chiefs that Castillo proposed, but the internal struggles within his coalition and the pressure from outside, from the right wing, and even the instability in the center has led to what we're seeing now, which is a 4th consecutive change in the cabinet. The unicameral way in which the Peruvian system is structured means that there's always the risk of impeachment very close, because you don't have at least one chamber that maybe the president controls and that you are sure that there won't be an attack because you control one chamber at least. So the president right now, as he loses popularity due to all this instability, is now trying to keep the few allies he still has in hand to make sure he has at least 1/3 to at least continue in power.
No, and another thing that adds fuel to this turmoil is the fact that the legislature, like you said, it's one unicameral Congress, and it's an extremely fragmented one, right? Peru Libre, which is the party of President Pedro Castillo, does not have a majority of seats. Presidents are always needing to compromise with extremely different parties with almost no shared ideals in terms of their ideology, their project for the country, right?
Yes, even inside the Peru Libre coalition, there's very big differences. There's a hard left faction that is kind of close to the Chavista ideology in Venezuela, but there's also a more moderate left that controlled the hard left controlled the first cabinet, really. They lasted 3 months. Then the more progressive, moderate left, so what sometimes is called in Peru the caviar left, more urban, more center left, really, controlled the second cabinet, but now also lost power after a struggle with the police, which led to the interior minister, cabinet chief, and even economy minister to to get out. And so that block of 30 people in Peru Libre out of 130 in the Congress, in the complete Congress, is divided per se. And after that, Castillo has needed a few more people, a couple of centrist parties, to at least reach half of the Congress needed to at least approve the cabinet chiefs that he names. But he is really struggling between these two poles of keeping the left happy, the hard left within his party happy, which actually didn't vote for the second cabinet that he named because in their view it was too moderate, and keeping the center happy, which really wouldn't be happy probably if a new leftist, hard left cabinet chief is named now. So he has very little support, and that support is fragmented enough that it's hard to keep everyone happy to not see its government disintegrated.
And it's like we wrote recently in our newsletter that this is Pedro Castillo's first full calendar year as a president, but it also could be his last, given all that instability that you're mentioning. By the way, I just want to use the opportunity to tell our viewers to go to the Brazilian Report and subscribe to the Latin America Weekly newsletter every Wednesday. Ignacio and Lucas Berti, they write about different countries, different issues that are the most pressing subjects that you should know about Latin America. We also have a Latin America report, a special report with the biggest challenges that Argentina, Colombia, and Chile will face in 2022. You can access that on Brazilian.report. You can also go to Buy Me a Coffee and donate money to pay for a cup of coffee to our journalists to help fuel independent journalism. Now, Ignacio, you mentioned the hard left, the soft left, but I mean, there's another big piece of the congressional puzzle in Peru, which is the hard right, the Fujimori right in Peru. Keiko Fujimori is the daughter of Alberto Fujimori, who was the president and dictator in the 90s. She has arrived as a runner-up in the past two presidential elections against Castillo by a very narrow margin, and she tried to prevent him from taking office. And her party has been a force to reckon with and has made life very difficult for past presidents. So what is going on with the Fujimori right wing at this moment?
Yes, the Fuerza Popular Party has been a force really in the pushing for the ousting, not only of Castillo really, but even of some of the past presidents we've seen. They were instrumental in ousting Pedro Kuczynski, the first of the presidents to fall in impeachment process and protests and resignations that we saw in Peru in the last 4 years. There was a big struggle for power between like the more liberal right and the more far right of Fujimori, and Kuczynski ended up ousted. And since then, there's been this maybe three-part struggle with some more small parties involved between the left, the hard right, and some centrist parties that has resulted in the more extremist parties in the right pushing straight up to oust Castillo, to linking him with the far left, saying he is the continuation of the armed struggles that Peru saw in the 80s of Sendero Luminoso, really trying to ramp up accusations, often without base, as you said, with the accusations of fraud that were really baseless. The same with many of the accusations about linking the current administration to the guerrillas of the 80s in Peru. But they're always ramping up this extremist rhetoric against Castillo. And Castillo hasn't really found a way to stop this. He has seen many ministers fall because of pressure from the right. The right found some links between his labor ministry and one of his first cabinet and one political group, which is composed of some former guerrilla members, which led to part of what caused the first cabinet to fall. And now they keep asking for Castillo's for an impeachment of Castillo. There are some other parties in the right that agree with this calling, often with links to generals, to the army, to the Peruvian establishment. But Castillo is trying to hold on, really. And now, at this moment, it seems like the main priority of Castillo is really to hold on to power and not much else. He made a lot of promises that he's not really keeping. His only priority right now is holding on to power somehow, and to contain this pressure from the right and this internal struggles that are weakening him internally. That seems to be his whole agenda right now, because of the pressure from the right for him to be ousted is so much.
No, and it's interesting what you're saying, because he promised to change the Peruvian constitution, to overhaul oil contracts, mining contracts, to do like a big turnaround in the economy, which, and like you said, he has struggled with the day-to-day governing. So what is ahead for Castillo? Because like you said, there are pushes for his impeachment. He's facing accusations of improper relations with businessmen. How strong is his political footing right now, especially considering that vaccination has advanced in Peru? So the country has caught a break in terms of the COVID crisis. He has not faced a generational crisis, but there are a few red flags looming. There was the major oil spill with the Spanish company Repsol that could disturb the oil industry. The inflation has been a huge plague in Latin America. So, I mean, what can we expect from this year? But I mean, instability is the norm, but specifically with Castillo, how can this instability unfold?
Well, he has a long time ahead. That's the thing. He's been 6 months in office. It seems like it's been a couple of years, but it's just 6 months. And he has 4.5 years to go. And he's in his fourth cabinet, because we didn't mention that his third cabinet lasted 3 days because the cabinet chief he named was accused of domestic violence and other allegations. And he ended up quitting. And now we're waiting for the fourth cabinet to be named. So as you can see, this is a government that is struggling to form even the most minimal basic requirements for being in office. Just forming a cabinet is being a problem for Castillo. So looking ahead, really, I think the priority right now for Castillo is just survival, because he sees that that the big promises that he made seem to have evaporated a little bit. As soon as he lost his first cabinet, which had the support of the hard left, which were the ones pushing the most for a constitutional reform, and he had to go a bit more to the center, all these promises of constitutional reform were abandoned, were shelved, to make sure that the center kept supporting him. Alianza para el Progreso, all those centrist parties.
It's interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it's interesting because we have seen the shift since the campaign, right? Because he was a wild card that nobody really paid attention to. And as he became a more and more competitive, his program started shifting with, I remember his first version of the program in the second round against Fujimori did not have the word Marxist. So we have seen this attempt to pivot to the right to make a more stable coalition, but he has failed at every turn.
Yes, I think the thing is his campaign platform was not designed to win. They didn't really expect to win at all. And so, yes, he was propped up by this Marxist-Leninist party that you would never expect to be ruling in Peru. And suddenly all these guys from the Vladimir Serrón faction, which is the hard left faction, found themselves in power with Castillo, who is a leftist but not as hard left as these guys from the Serrón faction leading them. But the hard left being the main really party behind him, the main party structure, the ones that were really structured like a party with a support base and political officials that could fill in positions and so on. But as soon as these people rose to power and saw that their political program really clashed with most of the political, the rest of the political spectrum, and they weren't really economical. They really had a lot of economic pragmatic solutions for the short term of Peru. And they found out sometimes they couldn't do anything that they promised. And Castillo had to turn on a dime and create a new program from scratch and look for the center left, maybe to try to create some kind of program that was politically feasible, right? That could get enough votes from the rest of the political establishment or from the center of Peru just to be able to complete the term. Because if he had just leaned on the hard left, he would have been ousted quickly. They have like 15 votes or something like that. They would have rapidly found out that Fujimori and would have taken the center to her side and having him ousted. So Castillo has had to improvise a lot, and now that he has also lost the center left, it seems in his the second cabinet, really the last cabinet that lasted more than 3 days, he will now have to look for something else. Maybe in the center, maybe going back to the hard left. It's not clear what he will do. It will happen in the next 24, 48 hours for sure. That's what they've been telling the press. So we will see in which direction he goes, but it's likely we're likely to keep seeing adjustments from his government as he tries to find just a footing to start to really launch his government in a more stable way.
And Ignacio will have a more complete analysis in this week's Latin America weekly newsletter. There will be analysis about what's going on in other countries, such as Argentina. And so you can follow on the Brazilian Report's website. It's Brazilian.report. You can also follow us on social media, Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @BrazilianReport. The same goes for Instagram. And once again, you can also, if you're already a subscriber, you can donate a cup of coffee to our journalists. Just go to buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian Report. Ignacio, thank you very much. And see you next time that we're going to discuss maybe the 5th cabinet of Pedro Castillo.
Yeah, possibly. Thank you, Gustavo.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.